Welcome to another BRUNCH, your Sunday rendezvous, episode number 18. This is the co-host, Coach Franchise directly for the beautiful country of Thailand, where we have to go all the way to Ottawa to find the co-host, Mr. Marco Larrabee.
Wow. Lots of great energy this morning, Coach. Thanks for that intro. Yeah. So, hey, listen, Coach, this is I have a special request here for this week. I want to dedicate this episode of HABS Brunch to my Aunt Carmen, who unfortunately just left us not long ago. We had a memorial service for her yesterday. She was a huge Sens fan. I know this is HABS Brunch, but she's a huge Ottawa Senators fan, but a huge hockey fan. And so, my thoughts to all my family. And she was a great lady, and she'll be dearly missed. Speaking of dearly missed, obviously my family is grieving right now, but I think I speak for all of us when I say all of Habs Nation is grieving right now for the loss of Caufield. There's the stages of grief. The first one is shock. So I think that's the first stage that we kind of all went through, and the second stage of grief is denial. And I think the whole team yesterday was in denial and just ignoring the fact that Caufield wasn't there, and they played a great game. So appreciate just a couple seconds off the top, Coach, to do that. But very excited. Lots of things to talk about this week. So appreciate the time.
No problem. First of all, condolences and of course prayer and thought about your family. First of all, that's the most important thing. So definitely we're going to talk about Caufield. And the next couple of minutes, we have a lot of things to talk about during that show. Maybe one of the biggest show for the episode. Yeah. Honestly, we have a certain thing. And then we have Karen Haynes going to join us the next couple of minutes for sure. But before we start, we invite the people to don't forget to click on the like, subscribe to the Hockey Nation Live show, and definitely leave us a comments. Should be live premiere at 11 o'clock Eastern time, a bit in the next couple of minutes. But until then, Mr. Marco, let's talking all the way at the warm-up introduction. Hey, she's back after she left couple of seconds ago. Karen is back in the house. Welcome back, Karen Haynes. It's funny because during the introduction, Marco, I don't know what happening, but she left and she come back after that. So it's just funny. But
glad to be back. My screen just completely froze. I was like, what's going on here? So I had no choice but to reload. And I was like, hey guys, I'm here. Let me in. It's on the screen. It says the host cannot see or hear you. And I'm like, God, what do I do now?
No, it pop up. We don't know. I did not know you left, right? Only I can know when you come back or someone pop up. And I thought, who's coming now? Like I did not know yet it was you. So I was funny about that. But hey, we are episode number 18 already. So we have a lot of things to talk about, everybody. And I know both of you are going to have a great knowledge about what happening with the Montreal Canadiens this week because if you talk about a crazy week, it is one of the craziest of the season that we can use. Caufield, SLAFKOVSKY injuries and call up, and then a couple of W where no expectation they would win last night, first of all, but they finished with a 3-1. So let's talk about the review of the week for the Montreal Canadiens. They played 4 games. Remember last time we left each other. It was last Sunday morning, and at that moment, 11 o'clock, live, it was great for the Montreal Canadiens. They came back from a loss the night before again, the New York Islanders, and then They play the Rangers, the Winnipeg Jets, of course, the Florida Panthers, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And no one here in the building predict a couple of W for the Montreal Canadiens because they finished with a 3-1-0 this week. And they are still, now they are 26 in the standing, and they got 4 games. I'm sure some of you are going to talk about this fun game. So let's talking about the preview of the review of the 4 games. So let's start with Marco.
Well, Coach, I think I mentioned last week that I always feel that the Habs, they tend to match up better against the Rangers than the Islanders. Like the Islanders play that kind of shutdown style. They're a bit heavier of a team. So I always feel like we have a chance playing the Rangers. There's this Shesterkin factor, obviously, but so I always have a good feeling when we play the Rangers. But no, that was a great win. You know, we'll talk about which players stood out to us later, but obviously Montembeault this whole week has just been just nuts, right? So, so yeah, those back-to-back wins, great efforts there. You know, just a lot of fun to watch. And again, like we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, you know, it took a while for the team to kind of buy into what Saint Louis was saying, like playing in their zone, stopping in their zone, being better off the rush, getting the puck out, all that stuff. Like all the more defensive play that they've been kind of inching towards. Really saw a better balance of them implementing that this week, and then still being able to be more opportunistic with the power play was producing a little bit as well too. So really nice there. The Florida game is just crazy. You know, really good first period, and then comme en français, les fils se sont touchés là, comme on dit en français. Like they just lost their minds on the bench and just yelling at the referees and penalty after penalty. We've talked about this before about how you know, we're missing a little bit maybe of senior leadership, or the senior leadership needs to be more effective at calming guys down in those situations on the bench. That includes the coaches and everything. So we saw things come off the rails a little bit in Florida. We had that incident with Radko Gudas kind of getting under everybody's skin, reportedly shooting, slapping a puck directly onto Doc on purpose, which probably didn't feel very good. And then last night, I think we all agree that Montreal could lose 50 games in a season, but if they sweep the Leafs, it still feels pretty good. So right now we're 2-0 against the Leafs, and even though it was a kind of a crazy week and some really bad news, hard to beat Saturday night against the Leafs. And you know, they always seem to be close games. Even remember like those teams in the early 2000s when there was like Danius Zubrus and Petrov, and even those games, you know, like we still find a way to make it close against the Leafs, right? So it's one of my favorite things in life, a Saturday night Habs Leafs. Hard to beat that. So great week, weird week, lots of stuff to talk about. Hope curious to see what you think, Kevin.
I really didn't see the performance against the Jets coming. I was at Bell Center on that night, and I was like, yeah, this is not going to be a good game. And somehow it was. So that amazed me. But I think it shows. It goes with the rest of the season. Really, we're a bit, you know, we're kind of on a roller coaster ride. Whereas, you know, you play so well against the Jets, and then you end up facing the Panthers. You hang in there for the first, and then the wheels just come off the wagon. It's just incredible. But as ugly as that game was, that's still part of the learning process for all of our young players, I think, because they need to learn that even in best league in the world, the reffing, well, you know, sometimes it's not up to par. And I'm not blaming the refs for that loss, because obviously if you're going to take 2 penalties for too many men, I mean, you know, you're shooting yourself in the foot. But there were decisions in that game which were upsetting, and that's understandable. But that's something they have to, you know, learn to deal with. And I think that was a good learning opportunities, if I can say it that way, for the young guys. And that goal, I'm sorry, but that shouldn't have cost. I mean, that should have counted. I mean, the league's reaction and explanation on it, like the collision and no bearing on the puck going in. Well, the only way you can say that is if the puck goes in before Montembeault, before the collision actually happens. And that's not the case. So, what? But, you know, it doesn't matter. We're fine. It's, you know, it's just, I can understand why the guys lost it a little bit after that. As for Toronto, I was shocked. I really was shocked. I mean, my blog today is titled "Not Depleted Enough to Lose Against the Leafs." And that's unbelievable, because if you look at the lineup yesterday, there were a Laval guy on every single line, and yet here they go and they beat them. But let's face it, they wouldn't have if it wasn't for Montembeault, though, because 2 periods out of 3, the Leafs really dominated shots wise and everything else. But Montembeault was there standing tall, so kudos to him, really. And yeah, that's my thoughts on the week in a nutshell.
Awesome, great. Finally, 3-1-0 for Montreal, 20-24 and 3 now. And the differential dropped a little bit. That's the good news for them. About 8 at the division, the Atlantic, with Ottawa now with the same number of the point. And then they are jumping from 27 to 26. And
Vancouver Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks are threatening number 25 for us there in a big way.
Yeah. So that's happening during the week. But like we do at that moment of the show, we ask you this question. And I'm sure it could be only for this segment. We can stay here for 20 minutes because who stood out is not going to be easy this week, because I believe we have so many players.
I'm going to go with Montembeault for this week, to be honest, because, he's been playing lights out. He's played the last 7 games since Jake Allen went down. He's got something crazy like 932 save percentage. I mean, behind that team, that's an accomplishment. He's making a statement here. He's kind of telling Kent Hughes, I deserve a longer contract. I deserve to be part of the plans of this team. And as we've seen, Kent Hughes is starting to see that. He said it himself in his press conference this week. So I was glad to hear that.
Marco, before you jump, I ask both of you a question, because if you look about Semen Montembeault, third round pick, everything like that, he's 26 years old. Do you imagine him when he was 23 years old, 23 years old, play with Florida Panthers organization, who had no chance to make the NHL? He get back at 24, I believe, his first time here in NHL. Do you reflect like what is right now Kaden Primo at 23 years old, and he's still young to become a goaltender in NHL? Is it like something we maybe people give up too quickly on Primo or not?
Well, personally, I've not given up on Primo just yet, but I think he needs time in the AHL. He needs more time. With pandemic and all that, he hasn't had a chance to just keep his head down and get on with it. I mean, he could have this season, but he got injured, unfortunately, so that didn't help. But if you look at last season's playoffs, he was doing really well. So there's potential there, raw potential, yeah. But it's not over for him. And if we can keep hold of Montembeault for now, it's going to help with the development of Primo. I'm not saying he's going to make it, but I'm not saying I gave up on him just yet. There's still time, plenty of time.
Awesome. Marco?
My view on my view on goalies, coach, it's like, it's voodoo, right? Like you take some chicken bones and like you rattle them around and you try to see kind of like what are they going to turn into. Like, it's just so hard to predict what happens with with goaltenders. So it would be silly to say that we know anything about what Primo is going to be. He's definitely shown great potential. But if I was Hughes, I'm throwing a couple more darts at the board here to try to secure, a true number one goalie going into when we're ready to compete, right? So voodoo, it's scary. You need to get like a witch doctor to part of your scouting staff to really understand what's going to happen with goaltending, unfortunately.
Okay.
So who stood out to me this week? I'd say like, there's some obvious ones, but I'm going to, just because I've been kind of not hard on him, but I've been pretty honest about kind of my appraisal of him in the past. I'll say Justin Barron, he stood out to me. Really, really solid week here for him. Like a really, really solid game against, I believe it was Winnipeg, I guess, that he did that amazing cross ice pass to Dadanoff for the one timer. That's like a highlight reel play, but not just that, but being a little bit more steady in his zone. That, like, I think we all know that he can skate and he can move the puck and he has a decent shot and can think the game offensively, but just looking for a little bit more compete from him in the D zone, and definitely saw that this week. So really positive signal, because that, as we know, like the right hand defenseman is a point of great, very little depth for us in the organization. So we need him to pan out at least as a third pairing guy, that can be steady. So yeah, so let's go with Barron. Good kudos to him to really battling back here since he's been called up.
Awesome. Yeah, great choice, both of you. I will go with Kirby Doc for me because I make a video about the Montreal Canadiens yesterday. I think maybe it's time to split Caufield and Zuski together. And it's happened before I know the.
So it's your
11 o'clock.
I guess they are split up now, I guess. Yeah.
I get out this 11 o'clock, and then at 11:05, I have to do another video too because Caufield was out for an injury. But my point behind that is all the analytic number are amazing when they are not play with Kirby Doc or when they play without Sean Monahan. The Zuski and Caufield are really bad on analytic number. Flip behind that.
5-on-5, yeah.
5-on-5 could be Doc when they play with anybody. Could be Anderson, could be anybody around him, increasing the number of underlying number. And I think for me, it's a really show exactly why the reason they draft him. And it's not a matter right now. He played maybe his best hockey in NHL so far, and he right now making some statement. Maybe Montreal maybe not need a center number 1 or center number 2, whatever you call it. And I think I'm really impressed the way he played with the Montreal Canadiens most this week. So good in transitions, so good in offensive zone, puck protection. He's just the only area he's not good is on face-off. But otherwise, I think for me, he's maybe one of the best players for me in my zone of the week. If I ask you another question you don't expect, sometimes it's good to do this. 4-star, a player maybe he did very well, but nobody talked much during the week. You have any one specific player? I know we never talk about this before the show, but a 4-star of the week, what it will be? If you have one, maybe in particular.
I would have chosen Barron if I knew that would have been I would have chose Doc, but so nice sneaky move there to steal my pick there, Coach. But fourth star, I think Savard is a guy that obviously is just a backbone back there, right? So he's just does his thing, and man, I'm curious that teams haven't caught on to that little toe drag move that he does. Like, it's pretty effective, eh? Like, he should teach some of the forwards that move, because it's the rate of success that he has using that toe drag cutting into the middle. I don't know, he's done it at least 10. I remember him doing it a couple times last season, but this season he's done it even more times. So why don't you show SLAFKOVSKY that move, or Anderson that move? Because our forwards need to be able to cut into the middle that effectively, right? We don't count on him for that offense, but Savard is, out of Edmonton and Savard, I think, especially because he's right-handed, and there's rumors that it's hard to, if you get a first pick for him, I guess it's hard to say no, but I think that's just the guy that you keep around because he just seems to have such a good attitude and just really solid. So Savard.
Karen?
4th star, I think I would go with Jesse Ylönen. I mean, the results aren't really there offensively yet, but he doesn't look out of place. He knows where to go. He knows how to create chances for himself. So yeah, he impressed me this week, even though the results aren't there yet. I'm seeing good flashes, and I think that all of those injuries are just going to give him more time to showcase what he can do, and hopefully it's going to be positive.
Great.
I didn't like his first period in Toronto yesterday. Lots of turnovers. I liked him so far, but he struggled. He struggled a bit. He struggled a bit yesterday, though.
Yeah, I know he did not play well against Florida because of controversy, but I think Josh Anderson picked it up a good week overall. Yesterday, he was like the bulldozer. We know how he's been in. I don't know. Yeah, but one thing play against good team. Like always, he looked like great. He looked like Wayne Gretzky when he played against Toronto.
We should get the team hypnotist to hypnotize him to believe that he's playing Toronto every night or something.
Yeah, I saw Wayne Gretzky. I should set Rick talking, but anyhow, I just want to mention him about Josh Anderson. So let's move on with other things. We have a lot to talk about. The news, Montreal Canadiens news update, injuries, a call up. It was not a good week for the Montreal Canadiens. It started, honestly, with last Sunday, Jake Evans, Juraj Slavkovsky, Jonathan Drouin, and Joel Armia, all four fall apart again. New York Rangers with fun injuries, and then yesterday, the big happening, the big news about Cole Caufield. That 5 of them, and then they call up during the week. And I mentioned all their name, but in the last couple of weeks with all those injury, Justin Barron, we just talked about Ireland, and Belzile yesterday, Pitlick, and Harvey Pinard joined the team. So really interesting. Like Kevin said, looked like the Laval Rocket beat the Toronto Maple Leafs last night, because you think about like all 5 players start the season with the Laval Rocket for in October, and now they play with the Montreal Canadiens. So it's not looking good overall. And when we want to talk more about the injury about Cole Caufield, that was really the subject. When we talk about Slavkovsky after that, Cole Caufield injury, shoulder, and honestly, after that we're going to talk about the contract. So let's start with Karen about the situation about Cole Caufield.
I generally couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the notification yesterday morning. I was like, what? Done for the year? When did that happen? And I was, thinking back the few games before, and I was like, where did this happen? And then I saw that Lavoie reported that he'd been dealing with that for a while. And last night it came out that he's been dealing with that for 2-3 months, actually. That's what his agent told TVA Sports. And I was like, but why? I understand he's in a contract here and all that, but that's not the kind of player you gamble on. You don't, put him out there when he can, risk aggravating the injury. But I know the player himself wanted to go out there and prove his worth, because there's going to be contract negotiations coming up. I understand all that, but he showed what he can do. I mean, Kent Hughes is no fool. He knows that. Everyone knows what Caufield brings to the table. I mean, the way I see it, he should have been, they should have pulled the plug a lot earlier than that. I mean, it's not a small injury. Apparently, it's a torn labrum, and that's kind of an important part of your shoulder, isn't it? It's the same kind of injury that Josh Anderson had. And watching Anderson play last night, and Anderson in his pre-game comments also said that he spoke to Caufield and told him, my left shoulder actually feels stronger than my right one, and that's the one I've had surgery on. And watching him play last night, I was like, okay, he's definitely intent on showing Caufield, see, there is life after shoulder surgery. So that's one good thing. But yeah, I'm upset, not by the fact that Caufield's going to miss the rest of the year, but by the fact that it took so long before they called time on it. I mean, this year means nothing. So it's better that your cornerstone is injured during the first year of a rebuild than it would be when we're, ready to actually compete. So that's fine, but I question the timing of it all and the fact that it took so long for him to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to go and get the surgery.
Yeah, like this is a really hot topic, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like I saw the the interview with Brisson on TVA, and it sounds like listen, a lot of players play with injuries all the time, right? And it's just part of the game. The part that I question about the timing is he was in practice yesterday, and being physical, like, and everything else, right? So it seems to me like it just there's something weird about the timing in that sense. Literally less than 24 hours after a pretty rigorous physical practice that they decide to shut it down. So, were they waiting? Because I think Brisson said that they did get 3 opinions. So I don't know if they were waiting for a certain opinion to do that. But like you said, Kegan, like, you're a Gallagher fan, right? Like you tried telling Gallagher not to come back, or so listen, like you want that drive from a player. It's part of the game that you're going to be playing through injuries. I get that this season is not the yeah. So listen, I get it. I think there's overall kind of a more troubling pattern that that we're seeing with medical situations with the Habs, and there was I think there was somebody on TVA too that was talking about how the Penguins did a pretty big overhaul of their medical staff after Crosby had that concussion situation and missed the whole year. They just reevaluated everything, and it seems that Michel Therrien said something interesting as well, that it's kind of political when it comes to the medical staff in Montreal. So we know Dr. Mulder has been there a long time. Like he's kind of an institution there, and that's a tough politically thing to do, right? Like to start questioning, hey, do we need to add more specialists or really start taking new technologies into consideration in diagnosing these things, preventing these things? So yeah, it's a tough one. Like we don't have all the data and all the information, but it certainly does look a little weird because he's literally practicing. And it's funny because I think it was Robida, you know how Robida and Saint Louis participate in the practices, and it was Robida is like cross-checking him in the shoulder. I'm like, oh my god, like our assistant coach is nailing our superstar's shoulder when it's so a little weird timing there, but I understand that he wants to continue playing, and well, it's a fair question for sure.
Yeah, the last rumor is there was expect the last report of the third doctor from outside the Montreal Canadiens, and look like that result make confirm now would be the best way to go that way. They decide to put Caufield out. But again, it's going to have another updates on the week for to be sure what's happening and how they decide to go that way. I wouldn't be surprised. They have like, Ken Hughes talk about the situation with Cole Caufield and next, and they just wait for see the update about the longevity of the how long he'll be out and all those informations coming for the next couple of days. But it's just you go to bed, everything look good, and then you wake up the next morning, and then you have someone
shock. Yeah.
Shocked like this,
just
like shut down, and nothing like happening against Florida Panthers. Said, I saw at some point he was upset at the bench because every time we have a penalty for Montreal, he cannot play. And during the second period, he did not play for over 12 minutes. He have 6 power play, and it's affect a players. Whatever you are a player, you want to be on the ice, and you can see what this he was frustrated, but I did not see anything happening during the Florida Panthers. Consider was like a major injury. At least I missed something, but it is what it is. But
no.
My second question.
Like Brisson,
go ahead.
Brisson was saying was kind of like it's like a culminative thing that happened. It's probably just wasn't one injury, right? It was several things that have just happened. He could have been playing this for 4 years. It could have been, but it's been a bit more aggravated over the last 3-4 months, but.
Definitely.
Possible to
the second thing we heard about people asking me a couple of questions about the contract. What you thinking about what it would change, no change, the negotiation and everything like this. So let's see, both of you have anything you want to add about the contract. What do you believe it will going to maybe have a renegotiation and maybe change the salary or not per year?
Well, I think this might actually sped up the negotiations because now Caufield's not going to be like, let's wait to see what kind of numbers I get at the end of the year. That's done. That's over and done with. What I am wondering though is, can you pay him more than you pay Nick Suzuki? And I'm not sure you can. I think what Kent Hughes is going to try to do is, base it on the Suzuki deal and try to get a reasonable number for a long time. Now, will Caufield be happy with that? I don't know. I mean, we've seen star players in the NHL refuse to go very long term lately. I mean, look at Austin Matthews. Is it this year or next year that he's going to be an unrestricted free agent? Next year, I think.
After next year, yeah.
Yeah, so, is Caufield going to be like, do I sign really long term or not? But I think he wants to stick around. I really do. But I'm not sure if Hughes is going to be able to get a number that will make him very happy. Because, goals come as a premium in the league, doesn't it? And the Canadiens have always struggled to score so much. So Caufield's aware of what he brings and how important he can be for the team. So I'm thinking I'd like to see Caufield sign for 8 years and at 8 million, if I can say, just a bit more than Suzuki. I think is going to be necessary to keep him.
Inflation.
I know that
inflation.
Huh? Yeah, inflation.
You just add inflation, right?
Yeah, because
I think in the team structure that Hughes would like to keep him on the same par as Suzuki, but I'm not sure he'll be able to do it. So yeah.
Marco.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of people there's already been some people before this happened that were a little bit nervous because, again, like there are short players and there are small players, right? Like, for example, you could say Martin Saint Louis was a short player, but he was a strong player, right? Like we've seen his legs, we've seen his upper body.
Yeah.
Cole Caufield is a small player, right? So there are some people that get a bit nervous about signing him long term for that money because of his size, right? So, and I'm always usually very careful. I don't like it when people say, "Oh, he's a small player." He might be a short player. Like Suzuki is shorter, but he's stout. Caulfield is a small player, which is fine. Like nobody's taking away what he can do, but I think it could potentially impact their willingness to commit to him long term. I don't think so, but I think a lot of people that already had that concern, I'm talking fans, not like Habs management, they're going to be even more concerned now because of this happened. But I would tell my message to them is, listen, like this is a rare talent, and you lock them up long term, and that's just what they should do. So I don't think it's going to impact the negotiations. I tend to agree with Karine that it might actually speed things up because, like you were mentioning, Coach, like the decision was made between Hughes, the Biggie the medical staff, and Cole himself, and it sounded like they had to kind of convince him to shut it down. So part of that would probably mean Biggie having an off the cuff discussion with him, saying, "Listen, don't worry about it. Like your performance is already kind of locked in what your value is. So, don't feel like you need to press on here just to kind of be able to increase your value or anything like that." So now that all those variables are not no longer an issue, then I think there's not really much more to do other than just talk turkey and really get down to business. And, um, you know, but you can see both of them were very tight lipped, like in the press conference. Hughes went out of his way to say, "I don't want to talk about Cole Caulfield,
Mhm.
and I want to be transparent, but don't ask me too much about the contract." And even Brisson was, pretty careful yesterday on TVA. So hopefully we'll get some news soon, guys. Like I think we're all, especially with this news, like it would just be nice to have him locked up and understand what the situation is going to be.
Yeah, great point here. I just want to open up my last, like when I talk about contract, I'm always looking around, okay, who got this, who got that, and the reason behind everything like that, and who represent the agent. So Pat Brisson have Jason Robinson, have Jack Hughes, have Kiro. I can go all the way like that, right? And then they got last one, 7 year for $7 million, Matthew Boldy.
I told you.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So I will go that way, me. I think they're going to get. He just turned 22 years old 2 weeks ago. Is it not January 2nd? I think he is.
Can't remember actually.
I think it
Possible.
is
Yeah.
the
It was
beginning of
Doc's. It was
January.
Doc's birthday yesterday, but I don't remember Cole
On the
Caulfield.
same day as Elise Bilvodak. See, it was meant to be.
So it's 22nd. So he's 22 years old. Sorry. So they'll give him about 3 more years to become 25. He's going to have 4 more years to become 5 years become a UFA. So what happening with Robinson? He got something like that. So a bridge contract until the last year of his contract. He served 1 more year as a RFA. Then after that, he become a UFA. So expect a 4 years contract, about the same amount of money as Zuski at 7.8125, whatever he called him. And then after that, he's going to have an extra year RFA that would jump him at 8.5, 8.8. And then after that, he's going to become a UFA. That would be my prediction about him.
That's terrible. That's a terrible prediction, Coach. I hate that prediction.
But that would
It's
be
awful.
because if you go to 8 years, imagine if you score 4 seasons at 50. That remind a lot of agents learn about Nathan McKinnon. McKinnon, when he got his contract at 5.6, he was just get out of 60-point season.
Yeah.
And he got underpaid for many years. So a lot of people pay attention about those information. But for me, I would not be surprised to go that direction. And no,
Yeah, I think we talked about it before. It really depends. Like usually this comes down to family too, right? Like family, again, like where this injury might actually have an impact is not like on the team having faith in him or anything like that, but the family might say, "Listen, Cole, like if you have a chance to get an 8-year deal, you know, and just lock it in at like a decent number, like this might be like your, because again, like you could get the 4-year deal, and again, like you could only play, you could have like 3 out of those 4 seasons where you only play 50 games, if you get injured or something like that. So it's always a question of and then again, the culture, like again, don't underestimate the power that Hughes has, about comparing this rebuild to the Bruins, right? So, like I've said many times, like I think we'll learn a lot about the character of Cole a little bit, how much he wants to win, right? Because Hughes is going to use that example of Marchand and Bergeron taking a little bit less so that they can be more competitive. So I would be very disappointed if they don't go long term. But
because remember, he's going to be 30 years old. It's not easy to negotiate at 30 years old.
Yeah.
So, and Matthews go to the bridge contract, by the way. Peterson with Vancouver did the bridge contract over there. But it would be interesting to see that. The next is about Juraj SLAFKOVSKY injury, knee development now. So my point to you about a little bit talking about SLAFKOVSKY since the beginning of the season, his progression, development. Are you still at, Karen disappear, but are you still happy about the fact like Marco, the fact he performing happy still with the Montreal Canadiens or not? If you have to do it, it's easier to talk that way because it's over. But what do you think?
Yeah, like it's I think right from the beginning of the year, guys. Hi, Kagan.
Hello. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my internet today, but God, messing up.
It's okay.
Maybe we should change our name as a Jenny.
So I think I was on the record saying that I was hoping and thought that SLAFKOVSKY would be there the whole year, and barring injury, obviously. So I wasn't surprised that they did that. Listening to Hughes talk about him and everything else, like it sounds like they really just like we were kind of suggesting, like they wanted him close to their skills and development and their coaches and everything. They have a plan for him. I've been satisfied overall with kind of how he was playing and developing. Like I I think, like I said, he's doing all the little things really well. Like one of the more effective players at getting the puck out of the zone, like along the boards. I think he's one of the best at doing like little kind of like exit passes out of the zone, like really crisp, like direct passes. So really, really solid things that I was seeing from him at a very basic level. And I think all the other stuff comes, right? Like I watched a lot of his play, like in his draft year, like actual games, not just clips. And it's not the same player. Like it's he's not doing the things that we thought he was going to do, which is not only win battles along the board, but a lot of quick give and go plays and really nice passes in the offensive zone. People think of him as a goal scorer. That's not his major strength. He's more. I think he's going to be more of a playmaker. He's kind of, hopefully he's like an Armia, but that makes a lot of really smarter passes, and can score a lot more. But so I'm satisfied. Like it's too bad. It's an unfortunate development for sure, but you can't control things like that. So hopefully he puts his head down, works hard, gets stronger, gets more used to North America. And again, he'll be around a lot of great people and can learn the game. Like even though you can't play, like you can still watch a lot of video, talk to the personnel and everything else. So disappointing that this happened, but I think that they did the right thing. Still debatable. They could have sent him to World Junior, I guess, but you can see that they were a bit nervous that if it didn't go well at World Juniors, that could be an even bigger knock on his confidence that he didn't dominate at that level. I don't love that attitude though. It's kind of like almost being like a little too conservative, like betting on the fact that he might not do well is kind of a bit of a loser mentality. So you could debate that one. So I don't know what you think, Kevin. Like, do you think it was the right thing for him not go to the World Juniors?
Well, after listening to you and hearing him say that, they identified part of his game that they wanted him to work on, I can understand the decision because for now, they don't want to see him put up points. That's not what they want to see. They want to see him adapt to the North American games. So why would you send him to the World Juniors and not focus on that? I mean, it makes sense. I will admit that I wasn't sure about the development course and not sending him to the World Junior, and I was questioning it myself, but I think Hughes in this presser made a good explanation. When he did this analogy that when you're learning in the NHL, it's like you're thrown in the action. It's like you're on a highway trying to learn to drive, and it goes fast, and you
Juggling,
need to.
you're juggling
Yeah,
balls, and then you have to juggle the balls. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
yeah, exactly. And I think it was quite a clear picture, and it made sense to me. I can understand, and I'm kind of annoyed at people that are already labeling in the next Kotkaniemi. It's like, geez, he's 18 years old. Can we just please breathe? And the development staff that the Canadians have got around now have got nothing to do with who was in post when Kotkaniemi was here. So, geez, calm down,
I
people.
can't even
Give
believe people that have given up on Kotkaniemi altogether. Like Kotkaniemi is still pretty young too, right? Like he could still be a decent player.
Yeah, yeah, it could be, but I mean, SLAFKOVSKY's 18. Can we just breathe? And yeah, as someone who's I've had 6 knee operations in my life because I kept blowing my ACL. So seeing those injuries, I mean, especially the one to Jake Evans, I can't see that replay. The way it fell and the way that the knee bent, I'm just like, no, stop showing the replay.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's been a hard
yeah,
week for me. I hate knee injuries.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think. I think because Karen talked about Ken Hughes and he's talk about the fact, like we're going to talk about him the next couple of minutes, but the fact like everybody have their own route or path, right? You can send Sakeskin American Hockey League, and you can send example like Jack Hughes never been to the American Hockey League. Quentin Byfield, he's stuck in American Hockey League right now, and everybody Alfie Surcat. Stock never been in the NHL, honestly. Everybody is Rick's friend. In fact, he first overall pick. It's not easy. And if he was in the draft right now and at 23, it would be a 7, 8, 9 pick. So, look, it's a progression slowly. And for me, you have to wait 3 years, 4 years before he would be his full potential in NHL. It was good for me to let him in NHL because that's the only way he can learn the pace of the game and of course the small rink and how you can develop properly. And to be around those Adam Nicola, Scott Pellerin, everybody else, I think that's a good thing for him at the end of the day. So that's SLAFKOVSKY. So let's move on now, guys. So we hit the 42 minute. And I want to talk about big press conference I can use Wednesday, I believe. The State of Union, no, the State of the Montreal Canadiens, and maybe give us a little bit what you remember the most, or pay a little bit more attention about the Ken Hughes conference, about over 44 minutes.
What really stood out for me was the bit about the medical staff and Kent Hughes admitting that it's a worrying trend for the Montreal Canadiens how many injuries there are. But he was saying that, and at the same time kind of putting forward that it's not easy to stop a hockey player from playing. He spoke about Gallagher. He gave him an example, and he said, if you tell Gallagher he's going to be back in 3 weeks, he wants to be back a week and a half later, and you have to protect the player from himself. So that makes sense. But at the same time, how can you say that and then a couple of days later we learn that Caufield has been playing injured 2-3 months? That just really upset me, quite frankly. I also like the fact that he's pleased with the young D's development, pleased enough so that if someone comes over with a good offer for his veteran defenseman, he's not, he will entertain it. I mean, as much as I like David Savard and the steady play he brings, if an offer just sweeps Kent Hughes off his feet, then let's go for it. This is a rebuild after all, and when the team is ready to contend, Savard's going to be long gone in any case. And so yeah, I like that as well. And what else? I just like the transparency of it all. I mean, he's saying a lot more than Marc Bergevin was happy to divulge when he was at the helm. So that's very good for me. I can understand the a reluctance to say too much about the contract negotiation, though. I mean, you don't want to put your cards on the table. That's fine. I don't need to know the details, the inner working of what he's thinking, how long he wants Caufield to be there. I think he said all the right things, really, on that front. And yeah, that's what stood out for me the most, really.
Marco, before you start, can I ask a question, both of you? Are you because I forgot to ask you about Cole Caufield? Are you shocked nobody knew about the injury Cole Caufield? Like with everything knows and social media and then like no one like we'd never heard nothing about the Cole Caufield. Like possibly he could be hurt or change his game. Nothing like I no one talk about this. Like, are you shocked a little bit? This has never been so much protect inside of this team whatsoever with
Mm.
everything's going on around the social media. Everybody knows everything.
I'm not surprised, really. I mean, clearly some of his teammates knew, but it's not surprising that they wouldn't, tell the world that, because player is so important to them. You're going to protect that information with your life if need be. It's not a case of Jonathan Drouin telling us that Shea Weber is not going to play anymore, is it? No one cared about that. But Caufield is on the ice. You're going to protect him. You're not going to say anything. So no, I'm not shocked at
The
all.
reporters, the reporters that might get wind of that, it's not like the old days where reporters used to really hold back on things that they learned, like maybe about players' behavior and things like that. But again, like you think like let's say Renaud Lavoie, right? Like who they give really good access to him, right? Like really close access. So he's not going to report on every single thing because he's managing a relationship with the team, right? So it's not surprising. There might be journalists that would be very close to the team that might have some information about that, but it's that question: is there benefit to public knowledge to know that? Not if it's not impacting his play, not if it's impacting his future or anything like that. So players play like we said earlier, like even Brisson said that like there's il y a bien des bobos, right? Like it's joue avec des bobos tout le temps when you're a player. So it's not surprising. I don't think.
I just open up.
It's
There
just
is
shock.
nothing wrong, but
Yeah. So just to circle back on the on Kent Hughes's comments about the medical staff, what I found in particular that was interesting about that is when he noticed that there was a pattern with back injuries. You know, so I find it interesting, like that shows the data-driven, kind of approach that they take to things. It's not like, oh, geez, we have 30% more injuries than last year. That's a very easy way and basic way to look at it. We have more injuries than last year. Maybe there's an issue, but they're looking at the types of injuries as well, right? So there's a lot, like you can just see. I appreciate people that are analytical, right? So you can see that they're looking at the type of injuries and trying to find patterns to see if they can prevent those. So that's a really cool thing. The thing that troubles me, about players playing through injuries, and again, this goes to maybe the medical staff of the Canadiens needs to be modernized. So Monahan, has this huge history of hip surgery and all this stuff, right? Back issue as well, and he breaks his foot. Now we know, like, you can play hockey. It's really usually the player's decision to play with a broken foot because, especially if it's just a hairline fracture, I'm not a doctor or anything. You can just play through it. It's not going to get worse. It's just pain. But the thing that you have to consider is that, okay, wait a minute. If you're, yes, you could technically play with it, but the problem is that you might overcompensate with the left side of your body, and that will put extra strain on your hip, which, so you have to, it's not just that one injury, it's how it's impacting the entire medical history of the player. And so I think it is something that they need to look at. But again, I'm not an expert, so I have no idea. To the other thing that really stood out to me is how often he used the word balance in the
Yeah.
press conference. Seems like every third time, every third word was about balance. And what I learned is that another trait that I like is somebody who can self-evaluate themselves. And I like the fact that he was able to do that. Right, he just understanding the balance between wanting to develop players and be competitive. There's a balance that we have to learn, and he's learning kind of how difficult that is as a general manager versus being an agent. So I think the way that you learn is being open to change, being open to adapt your plan, and also being able to look at your own performance and understand how you need to improve. It's the same for players, and I'm glad that the management team is taking that approach. Other than that, like, he was pretty good at, like, he didn't divulge too much. We didn't learn anything, like any news about what their strategy is going to be at the deadline. I don't think. But overall, I just like Kevin said, I like the openness, not just the transparency, but the openness to reflect on his own performance and trying to improve. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, and on Marco's point there about balance, I think the quote I like the most about that press conference had to be, he said he had a discussion with Martin Saint Louis and told him that winning was good up to a point and losing was bad up to a point as well. I mean, that just says it all. That just says, oh, how aware he is of the situation and what he knows this team needs to develop and not constantly lose, because that's going to be tough on the young guns, but not win too much so that you don't get a good pick. So it's really refreshing to see the Montreal Canadiens have that mindset. That's something we've never seen before, and it's good. It's refreshing, and it's like, finally, thank you.
That's a great point. On the flip side, a lot of people were upset. The old school players, the Benoit Brunet, the Mario Tremblay, the Norman Flynn, a lot of players, ex-players or ex-coaches was really upset about that statement, where they feel like you play hockey to win. If you don't play to win, what's the point behind that? So any comments about this? I know Kevin just explained for her, but
I really, really don't care about what Mario Tremblay can think. If you play hockey to win, then why do you leave your goalie in for 9 goals? So Mario Tremblay is a non-issue for me. I think the game has changed since those players were dominating and winning a lot. I mean, there's 32 teams now, and if you look around the league, rebuilding, it goes through the draft. That's just the way it is, especially for the Montreal Canadiens. We live in Quebec. It's a French province. The taxes are high and all that. So your best chance of getting a really good player and controlling him for years is to draft him. Plain and simple. And I think it's really short-sighted to say, hockey's about winning, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. It's not like they're tanking on purpose. They didn't just look at their lineup and say, oh yeah, we could get a lot of first round pick for Suzuki, so let's send him packing. They didn't do that. They evaluated,
Like
they
Chicago.
identified the cornerstones, and they said, we're gonna keep them and we're gonna build around that. And they even went out and got a really, really promising prospect in Kirby Doc, and so far it seems to really pan out. So Brunet, Tremblay, and all that can be upset all they want. I'm happy.
Yeah, and like, listen, like, if you listen carefully to what Kent Hughes says, he's like, listen, bottom line is, I expect that the coach and the players go out every night and try to win. He did say that as well, right? So you can kind of cherry pick little things here and there and try to spin it a certain way. But I think what he means is, ultimately he has to. Sorry, go ahead.
My point is, you have to go back on the TV the next day, right? And he explained the reason why. The question was directly about the standing. It was not directly about the performance. And that's the reason he said that way. You have to correctly a bit what he said to the people understand, but those like people, I just said, they was upset about that. But you're absolutely right, Marco, what you tried to explain right now.
Yeah. So I think it's, as an organization, you have one strategy as an organization, but on the ground, like on the battlefield, that's not even a thing, right? Like, the mindset is go out and try to win every night, right? Because that doesn't even enter the mindset of Martin Saint Louis, his coaching staff, and the team. It's I don't believe that for a second.
Awesome. Montreal Canadiens now gave me the reason why you're going to watch them now, because no Caufield, no SLAFKOVSKY, and they have a
Goulet.
Exactly. So what's the reason you're going to watching them?
Well, I'm going to keep watching because I have to blog every day, so that's one good reason. But also, to check out how the young Ds are, carrying on improving. I mean, Jakai has been a nice surprise straight from the get-go, and I think his play has only just it kept on improving. He's not just about getting penalties, even though he's leading the leagues in penalty minutes right now, I think, unless it changed last night. But he's matured nicely. He's putting the puck on the net. He's more than just a guy who's gonna make his place in the lineup by fighting. And I think people are unfairly saying that he's overrated. He's not overrated. He's making his way as a third pairing D and showing what he can give, and I like that. So I'm gonna watch for Jacky. I'm gonna watch for Justin Barron as well. I think if we can keep him up for a while, we could be nicely surprised. I mean, when he first got called up, we're like, oh, this is not pretty, but he got used to it nicely, and he's progressing by leaps and bounds now. So that's what I'm going to focus on, the young D, and also Samuel Montalvo, who's being a nice surprise this year.
Man, Coach, I had so many friends and family like, okay, well, I guess it's a good reason to cancel my cable subscription now because I guess my Saturday nights are free. Like not only my friends and family, but all over Twitter, all these Habs fans saying, okay, that's it, roll up to 10. Well, come on, guys, like the Habs are like a soap opera, right? Like if you've been watching this soap opera every day, God, I'm going to age myself, but I've been watching, like this for 30 years. Like you're just going to give up on the story halfway through, like just because one of your favorite characters got hit by a truck and is going to be away for a while. No, it's the soap opera. You keep watching every day. You watch all the, you chat about it. You come watch Habs Brunch so that we can chat about it. You're not going to, you can say that, but you'll be back. You're going to watch. There's going to be some painful times, but you'll be there because you love the Habs just as much as we do. And that's great. We love you for it. Now, strategically, there's still a lot of reasons to watch. Like all everything Kevin just said. I'll add, let's watch and see how effective St. Louis continues to be to try to get them to perfect their team play, right? Like, yes, because there's going to be a lot of if what we saw last night reproduces itself and we see the team kind of tighten together and play a better team game, well, you're going to strengthen that culture even more. And the players that aren't there, like Caufield and Gooley and everything else, they're going to if the core of the team that's playing, and I know there's going to be a lot of team players that are gone, but if some of the players are still there, then you're coming back into a team next year that is even more well established with those structures and with that culture, right? So there's still a lot of reasons to watch all the young players that we talked about. The trade deadline is going to be exciting. You're going to want to continue to watch all that stuff, right? So tons of reasons to keep watching, tons of reason to come join us every Sunday for Habs Brunch because it's the soap opera that you love, and we're all here to talk about it. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. We're almost at the end. Usually I have this question because before the show, before Marco show up, I was talking with Karen and we talk about the good news, the bad news. You feeling one about the W? We know Montreal suffered yesterday. They have a bad week because they now jumping on the ranking drop at 27-26. The Florida Panthers are 2 points to make the playoff, and now 18 in the ranking, go from 22nd to 18. And how was you feeling now? What do you feel about one Montreal win now? Do you feel like same way? Because we're not going to get better anymore. We're far away. It's impossible now anymore. I wonder if you win the lottery, but we're going to be far to be at the bottom 4. So what are you feeling now about that situation?
Well, I think it depends who they're playing, really. I mean, last night they were playing the old rivals, the Leafs. I mean, beating the Leafs is always good news, even for those who are strongly part of Tank Nation. There's plenty of time left to tank, and there's 3 more games wearing the retro reverse tops, which one of my followers actually calls the tank tops now, which is a great point, I think. They've got plenty of time to tank.
That's great.
Yeah, so just enjoy that win for what it was. I mean, just today on Twitter, it's hilarious to watch the Leafs fans actually make up excuses and all that. So enjoy it. There's not going to be that many wins until the end of the year, so take the ones that are coming with happiness. And and for those, I even saw some people saying, "Okay, now we just need Nick Suzuki to get injured, and we'll get better." Do not be that guy. I mean, come on. You don't wish injuries on anyone, not even on players from the other teams. Don't do that to your own team. Whatever happens, happens. If it's in the cards that they win the lottery or they get a good draft pick, it's gonna happen. Just enjoy the ride. Is what
Good point, Marco.
Yeah, definitely shout out to Ellen, who jumps on Hockey Nation live show all the time too. Great. She should definitely copyright that one, the tank top. That was pretty awesome. So kudos to Ellen on that one. Yeah, I think, Coach, like, you have to look at it from a macro perspective, right? I agree 100% with Kegan. Like, we could go, 20 and 60, and if we sweep the Leafs, then I'm happy, honestly. Like, in a rebuilding year like that. So I'm not too worried about these individual wins here. Like, definitely this week was a bit more successful, quote unquote, in terms of wins than we thought it was going to be. But on the aggregate, like they say in football, Kegan, right? Like, on the aggregate, I still think we have a pretty solid shot at finishing bottom 5, especially now that Caufield isn't going to be playing for the rest of the season and everything. So don't look past these little nice moments, right? Like, there's not going to be a lot of these. So, like, don't be like, oh, but we're like, just enjoy the moment. There's not going to be a ton of these little upswings throughout the season here. So enjoy it. The thing that worries me more is Vancouver, just like being a total dumpster fire. And by the way, like, just a terrible, I think the whole hockey world is just condemning how poorly the Canucks managed the Bruce Boudreau situation. I know it's not HABS related, but man, was that ever Bush League the way that they did that? But Vancouver is gonna, they're gonna continue to crumble here. And yeah, to me, even more worrisome is Florida finally getting their stuff together. But it is what it is. You can't control those things. We're gonna get what we're gonna get, and that's all it's gonna be.
Yeah, but a Bedard or a Carlson versus Tavorsky, it's not the same way.
I get it. Yeah, no, I get it. But you can't control it, right? Like, you can't get the players to not play. It is what it is.
But
like,
I will give you an
Chicago.
example last night, all right? And Kovacevic 10 minutes, Jakai 11 minutes, Jordan Harris 11 minutes, Savard 23 minutes, Madison 25 minutes.
But it's the Leafs. It's against the Leafs. Of course they're going to do that on Saturday night against the Leafs. You're coaching. I know what you're saying, Coach. Like, St. Louis coaches to win more than he should, but last night, of course, he's going to coach to win last night. Let's see if he continues to do that down the stretch against San Jose or something. Then I would be pissed. But against Toronto, I'm all for him coaching to win for sure.
3 games this week: Boston Bruins, Detroit Red Wings, and the Ottawa Senator. I think the game is at Ottawa Saturday, but I could be wrong. But otherwise, they have 3 games for the program for the Montreal Canadiens. We're not going to go deeper about this one over there. It's it is what it is with that part over there. We talk about SLAFKOVSKY. Finishing this show, we have about we passed the 60 minute. So just finishing this week, what you're looking for this week overall for the Montreal Canadiens?
I'm looking to see who's gonna step up. St. Louis said that the part of Caufield that's gonna be most missed is not necessarily his goals, but the enthusiasm he brings. So I want to see some leadership on the ice. I want to see some guys bring the energy, and like Anderson did yesterday. That's what I'm gonna look out for. Players who step up.
Yeah, I'm gonna be looking to see. Yeah, can they continue this? Like, I thought that sometimes when you get news like that one of your big players goes away, then the team kind of rallies together. But Coach, we talked about the stages of grief, right? So we had denial, we had shock, denial, and the next stage is anger, and then it's bargaining. So I don't know if we're gonna skip through those, but let's see if the Habs get angry or if the fans get angry as they're part of grief. But it should be a good week. Like we haven't played Boston yet this year, right? So always exciting to play Boston. Similar to Toronto, those are always going to be intense games, regardless of the players involved. So can't wait to see Montreal-Boston. It's one of my favorite matchups.
We'll be interested watching that. And until then, I learned a lot since the beginning of the season. The dog versus a cat, home run versus a walk, And then we talk about the fact like a walk on the highway. And then we learned last night to be on the train. I don't know what'll be the next time. Until next week, we'll see what we have. A new words from Martin Saint-Louis. Until then, we invite everybody. Don't forget to click on the like, subscribe to Hockey Nation Show, and of course, leave us a comments about this show. And we want to thank Karen Haynes again. She did it again with us. And Marco Darabi, thanks again to be the co-host. Until next one, we wish you an amazing, great weeks, everybody.